Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to continue on with our course designer series, which is going to be episode 2, which is going to focus more on laying out the your fairways, your rough, and different surfaces. So at this stage, if you've seen episode 1, which is kind of the setting up of the course, what you're going to do from that point is you'll have mapped out the course in its entirety in terms of the flow of and the direction in which the course is going to go. So once you've that done, this is essentially going to be our next step. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hop straight into the course designer, and we're going to continue on. So you would have seen on the last episode there that we would have had the course designer series set up. So we're just going to go back in and continue on from that point. So like I was saying, you would have if you followed the first episode, you would have, or you should have at least at this point, got the course mapped out. So you can see there, that's the continuation, or not the continuation, but that's what we would have been working on in the first episode, was just getting the course essentially laid out in the flow it's going to be. So what we're actually using at the moment is Celtic Manor, and what I'm going to do is just get to work on the first hole. So what we're going to do at this point is we are using the 18 Birdies app. It's just a handy, it's pretty much a very straightforward and handy app to use. Very easy, less tedious than using the likes of Google Earth Pro and other apps like Blue Golf and stuff like that as well. So we're just aiming to try and keep things a little bit simpler, and I suppose targeted towards the guys who I suppose have never really used a designer or just looking to improve. And obviously with the focus being on RCRs. So I suppose what we're going to do is we're just going to get cracking into the next step. So the next step, once the course is plotted out, what you want to do is get to work on putting your fairways in place, your rough in place, and your green in place. And what we can do then is we can use measurements for different reference points and so on and so forth. So what I tend to do and what I like to start with, and I suppose we spoke about it in the first episode as well, is that the measuring tool itself is going to be probably the most important thing and important tool that you actually have as an RCR designer. So what we're going to do using the 18 Birdies app is we're going to basically plot out our measurements. And what I do is I tend to use every single point at which the fairway makes a turn is going to be referenced. And what we then do is we go and plot out the fairways based on those points. So the start of the fairway, from what I can see, is 132 yards from the tee box and 313 to the green. So what I tend to do is I just hover over that marker that would have been there already, just add to that, and I'm just going to come up 132 yards. Went a bit too far there. And 313, so that's perfect. So that's where our fairway is going to start. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to plot out the left-hand side of the fairway. So the next turn on the left-hand side of the fairway is at 157 yards and 284 away. Again, back to the distance marker there. I'm actually just so 157, 285. 157, 285. Okay, just bring that back a little bit. There's our next point. So the fairway comes in just a slight bit, about 30 yards further up. So 187, 256. Again, back to that marker. So 187. That's 258, 257, 256. Okay, and then our next point then, just further up the left again, we're going to have 226 and 219. 226, and 219. Okay, and then what's going to happen then is just at that point then on the fairway, there's going to be a couple of bunkers there, so it's going to bring that fairway coming back in a little bit, and we've got 246 from the tee, 205 to the green. So 246. And 205. And again, you'll see this now, it'll start to make, or it'll start to kind of come together a little bit the further we get on. So we're just going up the left-hand side at the moment, and then we're going to focus in on the right-hand side, and then I'll just go and show you the easiest way then to go ahead and put down the fairway. So the next point then again is 266, 183. So these measurements are all based on Celtic manner. So if you're doing a different course, you're obviously not going to use these exact measurements or these exact dog legs that I'm using. .266, 183. And then we have another one just short ahead again. This is roughly in around where all the bunkers are at 286, 166. There we go. So then the fairway tends to straighten out just a little bit as it comes around that dog leg. So 326, 120. Again, it's all about using this measuring tool and using the add distance marker as well. And I'm actually after forgetting, I think it was 326, 120. Perfect. .344 and 97. Perfect. So you can see there the fairway's going to start to take shape there. We've the left hand side, cuts back in here for the bunkers, cuts in, cuts out, and then cuts back in as we turn on that dog leg and move towards the green. So this is just to, I suppose, give you a really good example of, I suppose, the easiest way I find to go ahead and I suppose build your course and have it kind of come together. So 365 and 75 is the next point. Perfect. Everything starts to turn towards the green, and just have one last. So 393, 48. There we go. Now, so obviously that green looks pretty small right now, so we haven't done anything there as of yet. So we're just going to have to get the measurements up for that now in a moment. Just confirm, or just going to get this last one placed in, and then we're going to move on to the green side and then come back down the right hand side. So we have 410 and 29 yards to the green. So that's 410 yards. And there we go. So that's essentially the left-hand side of that fairway all mapped out. Now we're just going to go ahead and get the green, so I can see there that the fronted part of that green is 423.16. So 423 from the tee. And 16 yards away. And then the very back is 459 and 19. 459 and 19. Perfect. So yeah, that definitely looks an awful lot more realistic and definitely an awful lot bigger, as that looks kind of like the size of a pitch and putt green at the moment. So what we're going to do is just using the app that we've there, it's given us a good idea of what the actual green should look like. So what we can do is we can go straight into our create surfaces. So we'll just back out a little bit there. We can go to sculpt land. Actually, sorry, I went into the wrong one there. So we go to create add, create surfaces, and then click on the green. Choose the brush we want, and then based on the green we're working with, just trying to find a brush that works best. So I'm gonna, this one here actually looks pretty decent. So we're gonna go with that one there. May need to add a couple of more brushes to it, but that's pretty much good enough for now to kind of start working off of. So what we want to do is we're going to place that green down, and there you go. So there's your green. Now what we want to do is, because the green at the moment is surrounded by, you have some heavy rough, and it creates this kind of awful looking edge. What we want to do is, with Celtic Manor, there's a bit of a fairway after the fringe, and then there's a little bit of rough. So if we just, once the green is down, don't touch a thing. All we want to do is just press back, and it'll just come straight back out, and it gives us the option then for other surfaces. So we can go into fairway, brush, and it's literally got that brush exactly where it was beforehand. And what we can do then is, if you click on that, we should start to see, if we click on it just a couple of times, the fairway starts to appear. And you can see there now we have some green, we have some fairway, and now we're going to do the same thing again. Just all we need to do is just press back out, just to keep the brush exactly where it is. And then with the rough, I think we can just make that brush a little bit bigger, just because we need, we're going to need to override that fairway a little bit. And as you can see then, our light rough starts to appear on the green. And it's given us a much more natural looking green. And there we go. So that's the green sorted. There's obviously going to be bunkers in there, but that's going to be for a completely different episode. For sure, we're just going to focus on getting the green down, the fairway down, and I can show you then a little bit on the tee boxes as well. So left hand side done. Let's go back and do the right hand side. So the right hand side is definitely an awful lot straighter than the left side. So it's just roughly about 155,298. So 155. There we go. And we've got 264, 203. So we're trying to be as accurate as we can with this. So 264, 203. Let's just bring that back there. Okay, so then everything kind of works in towards the hole there. So our next point then is going to be just a couple of, maybe about 40, 50 yards ahead of it. 294, 167. So small landing area there if you for when you go ahead to play this using the tour clubs for sure, is you're going to have that little pocket of a landing area there. So you want to be very precise. Just something that I noticed when I was building it the first time around, that landing area is actually an awful lot smaller than you give it credit for. So the next one again is 340, 118. So 340, 118. And we have another one here at 351, 101. Okay. And then again another one here at 402, 45. Four, 245. Perfect. And then one last one just before the green, 417, 23. Sorry, I actually forgot that one there. What was that? It was definitely 23 yards away. So let me just see if I can get that number again. So 417, 23. So 417. And 23. Okay, so that's pretty much every single plot point there, every kind of twist and turn that's on the fairway. One thing I think I suppose the method we're using here, sometimes you can tend to have too many points on it, which can kind of take away or mess around with the method we're going to use now. So what we're going to do is we are going to lay down our fairway. So how we do that, we're just going to go back out to the editor menu. We're going to go to create add. It's back into the surfaces again, but this time we're going to go to fairway. And instead of brushes, because while brushes seems great, you know, we've all these different shapes and sizes, which seems perfect, it doesn't create the exact edges that we want. So those are handy, but they're not what we need right now. What we need are these splines. So what we do is we'll take the spline and we'll bring it to the first point here. Start of the fairway, roughly middle. I mean, you know, you can try to be as accurate as you want. And then we're just going to continue on each and every point. And what this is going to do is it's going to create the, I suppose, the outer point or the edges of our fairway. Maybe zoom in a bit, it might make it a bit easier for me. Okay, no, I messed that one up, but it's okay. We'll move that when it comes to it. Okay, so now we've reached the front of the green. So what we're going to do is, it's not going to actually affect it, because the way the surfaces work is that you can't place fairway on top of green, you can only place fairway on top of rough. So I like the way they do that. You basically, light rough goes on top of heavy rough, fairway on top of light rough, green on top of fairway. You can't do it the other way around, which is handy. So by placing that there, we're not actually going to ruin our green. All we're going to do is just have them there, because it's just the fairway is going to flow into the green, so it just creates that natural effect. Then we're going to go to simply back down the left hand side, using each of these points that we measured out as our reference points. And just work my way through this. So now that straight line, I suppose, from that corner to, or from those 2 points that I've just done there, isn't actually that straight, but I've just, because of the method we're using with splines, I can create the little twists and turns that are actually there, which is handy. So I don't have to work on each, like if the turn is so minuscule that it's not even worth putting in, I can use the splines to be able to kind of give me that effect. So that's that there. Now all we need to do once we've hit all our points is press back, and it goes and it lays out our fairway for us. So at the moment that does look pretty straight, pretty rigid, doesn't look very natural flowing, but that's perfectly okay. We're going to come back and work on those in just a few moments. So what we're going to do now is that with each course you want to lay down some light rough, and this is, I suppose, one of the struggles that an awful lot of people have with building courses, is to get the light rough to run as symmetrical as their fairway is. So a little trick for that is, if we come back to the very first point, I'm just going to delete it off because I don't really need that point anymore. So delete that off. Now I've got the 2 waypoints here from the fairway. What I want to do is, just because they're highlighted now, I'm going to go into create add, create surfaces, but this time I'm going to go to rough and spline again. And I'm going to go over each and every point that I did with the fairway. Now you might kind of ask yourself, why are you going over the fairway with rough? Surely that's going to just overlap and it's not really going to show. But again, I have a little trick that we can use that will basically give us the fairway and rough line that we actually really want. So let's just get this done nice and quickly. I'm not going to worry too much about it being exactly on top. This is just to kind of show you how you would go about and do it. So now what I will do as well is I'm just going to add a random one out here. Again, that'll make sense in a few moments. when I come back to getting all the fairway and green kind of smooth it out and flowing a bit more naturally than the kind of rigid straightness that's there at the moment. Okay, that's that done there. So now you'll see that there's a little bit of a kind of a green rough that's after appearing there, which is basically to outline that we've put down some rough in that place. So what we do is we've a couple of spots here on the green. There's the fairway there and also the rough here. So what we want to do is if we take this point here, we're going to use the fairway, and what we can do is once hovered over it and once it shows that it says spline waypoint fairway, we can click edit on it, and from here what we do is we go in to the sharpen and smooth option and choose smooth path, and there you'll start to see a way more natural flowing fairway with all its twists and turns. Now, obviously not all of them are going to be exactly as we want them, but we can make edits on it. It basically does most of the work for us. We just have to go along and tidy it up to make it look real life. So what we do is we do pretty much the exact same thing with the fairway. So sharpen and smooth path, and our rough is going to follow in pretty much the exact same line. It doesn't always give the exact same line. Sometimes you might need to make some changes with the individual points or the waypoints themselves. So now how do we go and make that rough actually appear like a line of rough along the side rather than just being overlapped by fairway? So we come back to this point that we put down extra, click back into edit, and we can change the width of each line. So I like to have them roughly about 4 yards versus the 2.5 yards for the fairway. So that's done, and once we come back out, you can start to see there's a line of fairway, and a line of fairway and a line of rough. And that's essentially the outline of each hole. And now the simple part is essentially filling that in. So what you do to fill it in, now what we can do to make things a little bit easier for ourselves right now is we can come back here. We don't really need all these reference points anymore. The fairway's pretty much done. It's good to go. Come back here, delete them off. Sorry, this should have been clear all, but we can use that from here. So I can, yeah, I can clear all there because I don't need any more of them. So there we have the layout of the hole. Now what we want to do is to get the fairway down. Back into create surfaces, fairway. This time we can use our brushes. I like to use these skinny brushes because the borders on them are nice and thin, whereas these kind of circular ones have really, really thick brushes on them, so it's harder to get things a bit more accurate with them. So I like this one here, and all you got to do, once you've clicked into it, just hold down on X, and then you can start to paint your fairway on. And once you've it pretty much finished in, you can just continue on to work on those edges. So I'm not going to go through the entire process of getting that done. But what I'm going to focus on next with you just before we finish this up is you can see that there are some like edges and bits and pieces there that happen. Now they're small minuscule things that do happen when you tend to use the spline work and when things aren't, measured out exactly as we want them to be, or as in the flow of it isn't exactly as we want it to be. So what we go ahead and do is we can come just away here, click on our rough settings and change the rough texture to snow. And what that does is it basically highlights everything into that lovely white color, and we can start to see all the little bumps and all the little jagged edges that appear. And then this really just comes down to polish, kind of that polished look on the fairway, and how we actually achieve that kind of straight, or to straighten out those little jagged edges that are there. What we do is we go into create surfaces, we go into fairway, go into brush. Again, we can use that same one again. It's a nice thin edge on it. And we just go up nice and close and just try and just create. Now, I went too far with that one, so I'm just going to make that brush a little smaller. Again, just a little bit too big. And we're starting to create a much more smooth edge. Now, sometimes, look, you're not always going to have them exactly perfect. It's not going to run like an absolute perfectly straight line or perfectly smooth line. At the end of the day, in golf courses, they're all maintained by greenskeepers, and greenkeepers may have shaky hands or anything or something like that. So it's essentially going to be using that method to try and straighten them out as much as possible. It's the same principle then for your rough. So there's that, you can see there's a couple of jagged edges there from the rough. And what we do is we just go back into the rough section, to the brush. We can use the same brush again. And what we try to do is just push out those edges in the hope of straightening those out. So like I said, sometimes they're not always gonna, it doesn't always behave as well as you'd like it to, but it basically just improves the aesthetic of the course itself. And what I also find as well is that, you know, you could spend all day, or, you know, all week, or all month, all year trying to get these jagged edges removed. The best thing to do is really just spend some time on the ones that you can actually visibly see. Like if you have to go down here just to find a jagged edge, then it obviously isn't that important to go and fix. But if you're just up here and you can see like there's two there, this one here needs a bit of work, just needs to be rounded off. There's two over here, two more here. Like those ones you can go ahead and work on. The rest of them, like if they're really small and not overly visible, you can hear my little girl just woke up there a few minutes ago, so she's making plenty of noise. You going to say hi to all the guys? No? Okay. So she might scream or give her own feedback on courses. She tends to like my courses anyway, so far, so she tells me, but that could all just be a lie. So yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of getting the hole laid out, and that's all you really need to focus on for this point, is just to kind of continue on that process. Just use use each individual points for all your twists and turns in the fairways, and then use the splines then to go ahead and map out the edges of your fairway, and then you can just overlap them with the rough. After that, then it's just about tidying it up, getting to work on those jagged edges, and once that's done, then your hole is essentially laid out. All that's left to do then is if there's any water, if there's any bunkers, but again, I'm going to do a separate one on those. So that's pretty much it for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it will look like, I suppose, once you've kind of gone through the whole process of laying everything down, and maybe a little bit on the sculpt work. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to save this for now and just exit out. And I'm just going to hop into the Celtic Manor that I've been working on in the background, and just to give you a look at what it tends to show up as. Now, I haven't done a huge amount of polishing on it, so you still see a couple of jagged edges there, but I suppose you just get the overall gist of what the end result is. So here we go. That's the first hole there that we've been working on. Obviously, I've gone and made some adjustments and so on with that that I didn't do in the video there. But again, that's just something that comes over time. But that's what the hole will eventually look like once we get through the process on the Course Designer series. So that's exactly what you can expect to see once you've gone through filling it all out, worked on your jagged edges, and get your fairway and your rough done. So I said I'd quickly mention actually about tee boxes. Again, they're very, very straightforward. You can go ahead and remove each tee box. So what you need to do, so I'm going to just pick a random hole. Actually, I've gone and removed them already. What you can do is you go to your course settings, tee box settings, tee box size, and just bring it the whole way down to 0, and that just removes the tee box, the big massive square tee boxes that the designer gives you, and just gives you the freedom to add your own. So some people use different surfaces for their tee boxes, some use fairways to tee off from. I prefer to use the green. I just think it's a lot nicer, a lot more clean cut. And to do that, it's just a case of create surfaces into your green, choose the brush, and then you can pick your own particular tee box. And then for measuring them out, it's essentially the same as what we've been using all along, which is the sculpt land and your measure. So what you do then is you just pick up, you obviously use the app, the 18 Birdies app, and you'd pick your points at where all your tee boxes are. So that one is 27 yards away. This one here then was 58 for the center point, 99 for the center point, and then again onto the fairway. Now you can see I've obviously gone a little bit more extra detail put in here than I've shown so far, but again, there'll all be specific episodes for all the extras at the moment. So guys, I hope that's been helpful. If you've any questions at all, just leave them in the comments. Smash that like button as well. If you haven't yet checked out the setup episode, make sure to check that out first before getting to work on this, simply because it's important to keep to a process, and at least it allows you to make sure that your course is going to fit the way you want it to, and then you can go ahead then and start laying out your fairway. Okay, so thanks for watching, and we'll be back hopefully in the next few days with another episode. Thanks guys, bye bye.